We'll try that again. Hello, my name's Lewis. I'm from Underpin Consultants, and today we're going to try and do something a little different. We are going to look at something I created last week using Google Notebook LM. And what Google Notebook LM does is it takes a lot of information and it creates a notebook for you. And as part of that notebook, you can also create something it calls a deep dive, and what I'm calling a podcast. But unlike most podcasts, this podcast is created by two AI voices. So it absorbs all the information. And what I did was I gave it my 2019 book, The 5-Step Marketing Plan. And what I thought would be really fun today is to go through that AI created deep dive / podcast and work out how we can learn what AI is good at, what it's not good at, and how accurate is it actually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of live react to the video. I'm going to come back in and out every now and again. I'll pause it, give you my thoughts. My thoughts will be as follows. I am not an AI specialist. I'm not a coder. What I am is a communications expert. I'm a project manager. I like listening to podcasts. I like hearing information more than I like reading information. And so I thought this was really interesting. And I think it could be a good way for us to be able to understand a little bit more about what AI can do, and more importantly, what it can do. So let's start it and see where we go.
All right, let's dive into the world of marketing today. We're taking on the 5-Step Marketing Plan, 2021 edition by Lewis English. Consider this your own personal marketing strategy session. We're pulling out those golden nuggets of wisdom to help you on your business journey no matter where you are.
It's amazing how this book really emphasizes a holistic approach.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it there. So there's a male voice, both American. You can't change that. There's a female voice, and there's a male voice. And already you can hear some really amazing imperfections in the way that they are talking. And you'll hear more of this as you go along. The whole point of humans is that we are imperfect. Our voices are all different. We and ah. We go off on little tangents every now and again. We add a few choice phrases in. What AI is trying to do here, what Notebook LM is trying to do here, is they are trying to say to you, these are real people. And the way that you have real people is by giving those imperfections. On my Google Assistant, it does it all the time and it's quite annoying. It says, hey, sure, or whatever. And actually, it's actually adding to the experience, it's adding to the length. But for me, what I find really helpful is understanding that to generate non-robotic voices, you actually need to add in that layer of imperfection. And I think that's really important. So anyway, let's continue.
You know, it moves beyond just flashy tactics. It's about really weaving your company's core values into every single customer interaction.
So it's like marketing IS, the business itself.
That's super interesting. So in my book, in the first kind of page of my book, it says marketing is your business. But what I did there to emphasize that was I capitalized it. So I capitalized the I and I capitalized the S. If you go back just slightly, let's hear that again.
Approach. You know, it moves beyond just flashy tactics. It's about really weaving your company's core values into every single customer interaction.
So it's like marketing IS, the business itself.
So it said marketing IS, the business itself. It read that as a acronym. And I think that's really interesting because I don't think any human would. I think if you read the sentence, marketing is your business, but the emphasis was on the is with capitalization, I think that's really, really important to understand that it is literal. So it's taken it and it's looked at it and it's seen it as an algorithm, but it hasn't seen it as a human, which I find really interesting.
Not just a department.
Exactly. The book has this great analogy to illustrate that. Imagine trying to sell a mystery box. Nobody knows what's inside. That's exactly what it's like trying to market without truly understanding your business and its values.
That makes perfect sense. I wouldn't buy a mystery box, would you?
It's weird, right? it's kind of uncanny valley levels of funny interaction. It understands that there's this feeling of, oh, a mystery box. But like, I would never buy a mystery box, would you? I just feel that that's quite stilted. And what's interesting is, as you go further into this, you'll find less and less of that. And I wonder, and it's quite annoying, that the two big mistakes in my head for this whole thing come at the start of the whole thing within the first minute. But that, yeah, there's kind of something called the uncanny valley, which is where it gets too close to humans' actual perception. And therefore you kind of feel, oh, wait a minute, that's 0.01% off. And so I'm going to really notice it. If it was 50% off, you go, ah, but it's trying to be human. It's trying to be friendly and open and cool and funny. I just don't think it's making it. But I really like the way that the programmers have tried to make it more human.
The book actually mentions the company that made that mistake. They wasted a whopping 30,000 pounds on marketing materials.
Americans saying the word pounds will always make me laugh. It's like a British person saying dollars. It just I don't know why. It's one of those very specific words. Yeah, quid is another one that they do. Oh, anyway, nothing against Americans. I just think it's quite interesting when a word that is entirely English, British, gets said in a different accent. I think it's quite jarring. But that's not an AI issue. That's probably a me issue.
All because they skipped that crucial self-reflection stage.
Ouch. That's an expensive lesson for sure. But it really
Again, another one of those, ouch. It's kind of there, but actually, the more emotional it tries to be, the less professional it tries to be. I feel like the more the AI is struggling to meet the expectations of what we as listeners are trying to get from our podcast hosts. They're trying to do it, but I don't think they're quite getting it.
highlights how crucial that foundation is. Speaking of foundations, did you find the foreword a bit unexpected?
So this is a really interesting one. Coming up now, they're going to talk about so in the foreword, we talk about how NASA helped and how project management and marketing. They again the AI has tried to input its own thoughts on this, and let's listen and see what comes out.
The one about the Apollo 11 mission. What does landing on the moon have to do with marketing, right?
Right. But then it clicked. It's all about challenging those assumptions. NASA had to completely rethink their whole approach to reach the moon.
It's a powerful parallel. Just like NASA ditching the straight shot to the moon idea, businesses have to adapt. The most effective path isn't always the most obvious one. And this time,
that really works. And I actually can't tell you why right now. But compared to the ouch, it felt more flowy. It felt more interesting. And what I love to do is read it. Because a lot of the times when you come across AI written down, I can kind of tell it quite easily. I think the layer of really well done AI voice is masking a little bit, but then maybe when they're trying to get higher, they're trying to get more emotional, it fails. So that's really interesting. I think when it's just trying to be a standard, middle of the road, non-emotional voice, I think it works. And I think the more it raises its emotion, the harder it becomes.
ties directly into what the book calls focus, which goes way beyond just having a simple mission statement.
Okay, so let's break down this whole focus thing. There are multiple parts to it, right?
Absolutely. It starts with your mission. Like, why does your company even exist? The reason you do what you do, take Google, for example. Their mission is to organize the world's information. Ambitious, simple, and it guides everything they do.
That does sound a bit fluffy.
I love it. I love it. So again, what I'm trying not to do is focus too much just on the negatives here. I think the positives are really good as well. The strain at which the male voice is like almost craving to understand, and how the helpful, there's this idea in learning that you have the helpful idiot. So the person who asks the questions that the audience really wants to hear the answer to. And so what he's doing here is going, well, I just didn't quite understand. It's a bit fluffy. And I do this a lot in training is, it's about asking those questions that everybody else wants to ask. And then the female voice is turning around and saying, oh, no, you don't understand. This is what we're trying to do. I think that's super interesting.
To me, though, do customers really care about a company's mission? Don't they just care about what the company offers?
That's a great question. And the book addresses this head on. It's not just about slapping a mission statement on your website and calling it a day. It's about actually living those values. And that shines through in how you interact with everyone, not just your
Or
customers.
walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
The cut-in, I love it. I love it. I genuinely do. The cut-in of the guy kind of over-talking slightly, kind of male thing that we do. And then, yeah, let's go back. Let's go back just a little bit and hear that again, because I think that's super
Not just
interesting.
about slapping a mission statement on your website and calling it a day. It's about actually living those values. And that shines through in how you interact with everyone, not just your
Or
customers.
walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And this is where priorities are important.
Love it. I love it. I think it's great. It's really natural, and I'd love to see the code on that. I'd love to know how they've done that. Just little bit of interaction. I think it's great.
If your actions don't match what you say your values are, your marketing will just fall apart. It's like trying to run in two directions at once.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
But how do we take all this internal stuff, the mission, the values, the priorities, and make it something that customers can actually grasp? That's where the message comes in, right?
Exactly. You have
So it's not written like this in the book. It's not this conversational in the book. It's quite a how-to guide. It's step by step. It's short paragraphs. Him, again, acting like the helpful idiot, asking those questions that people will want to hear and know the answers to. It's so human. It's so human.
to translate those core elements into something relatable and something meaningful for your target audience. And speaking of the target audience, that's another super important piece of the puzzle. It's not enough to just know their age or location or income. You need to dig deeper, like what motivates them? What are their desires? What are their pain points? A lot of businesses miss the mark here.
It's like that mystery box again. If you don't really know what your customers want,
Bringing back those tells. You've talked about mystery box before, and when they first talk about the mystery box, it feels odd, uncanny, not particularly not particularly human. Whereas now he's brought it back in, and he's now talking about it in a way. And I'm using he. I'm using he and I'm using she. I said female voice and male voice not 5 minutes ago. Whereas now I'm using he and she. They're becoming real people to me as I talk, and as they talk, and as they understand. And I think that's such an interesting psychological and eventually sociological thing that we're going to have to reckon with, which is I'm starting to see him as a person. I'm starting to see her as a person. And I think that's where AI is eventually going to go.
you can't really offer him anything of value. And I bet this is where that company personality comes in. Like, how do you want to be perceived as a company?
Think of it this way. Apple, Dell, and Radeon are all
Think of it this way. Think of it this way. Such a powerful connector that I know 90% of humans wouldn't use. But that's so smooth, so orientated. Again, you can see as I'm going through this, I'm loving this more and more.
in the tech space, but their personalities are totally different. This shapes their brand voice, and how they actually connect with customers.
Oh, that's what's missing from that robotic side of things. And I'd love to know why, from a coding point of view, why the first minute was so. Is it a coding thing? Is it a me thing? Is it that I'm now getting used to this? Is it now that I'm understanding where they're sitting, or does it get better over time? Is the intro the hardest thing to do? Again, something to think about.
It's like choosing friends. We are naturally drawn to personalities that click with us.
I see what you mean. Customers are drawn to brands that resonate with their own personal values and style. So it's not just about features and benefits. It's about that deeper connection.
Right, but of course benefits are still important. What tangible value do customers get by choosing you? But it all comes together in the physical branding, like your logo, colors, tagline. It's the outward expression of all those things we discussed.
Now starting to forget to talk because they're just talking and they're just having a conversation about my book, which is weird, and they're saying nice things about me, which is weird, and they're just talking and they're getting it right. They're understanding what my book is about. They're just I'm just listening to a podcast.
So it's like the visual and verbal shorthand of your brand. This whole focus thing is making a lot more sense now. But I'm
This whole focus thing is making a lot more sense now. Again, I'm going to stop doing this now because those connecting human, this is the way that it works. How are you doing? So what do you think about this? That's what makes is what turns this from a text to speech imagining to a genuine conversation between two different people, the same person. It's not even a person, it's an AI. But that's what they're doing. They're inserting that humanity to change it from the text to speak to a genuine conversation.
also realizing how easy it is to get lost in the weeds, especially when you're really in the thick of things and using all that industry jargon.
You've hit on a super important point. The book really highlights the dangers of using jargon. Like it can create a barrier between you and your customers. Do you remember that Sally Ann test? That was a great example of how important it is to really consider other people.
That's interesting. So that's another mistake. So they've mentioned something, the Sally Ann test, which is a psychological experiment about empathy, but they didn't explain it. They say, "Hey, do you remember the Sally Ann test?" Super interesting. They just assume the AI has assumed that because the information is in there, there's no empathy, for want of a better word. And I think this is super interesting. Is they have turned around and said, "Oh, the Sally Ann test. Everyone knows the Sally Ann test. It's like saying a fork or a spoon. Everybody knows what a fork or a spoon is. I don't need to say, oh, I have a spoon. It's a round thing with a thing at the top and it's got a handle and I use it to eat cereal or soup or whatever." It's not created a hierarchy of what people know and don't know. It's assumed that you know everything. So when it says the Sally Ann test, it's saying it as if it's a thing that we all understand. And we don't. And I think that's an interesting quirk there from the AI.
People's perspectives.
It made me wonder if we often assume that our customers know more than they do. We need to step outside of our own bubbles and use language that they actually understand.
Absolutely. This is also where the book's emphasis on writing down your plan really hit home for me. There's a study mentioned in the book. It showed that people are 42% more likely to actually achieve their goals.
They quantified that then. There's a study in the book. I don't know. Interesting. Wonder why it did it there. They didn't do it before.
If they write them down.
I've heard that before, but never applied that to my marketing. So how does this tie into the SMARTY principle from the book?
SMARTY stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely, individual, and evaluated. The book goes really deep into how each of these elements builds a strong plan.
I don't think I do. I don't think I deeply go into it. The book itself is only 30,000 words, but they've really focused on it. And it's nice, again, that they have quantified that particular thing. And it leads me to wonder, again, that inconsistency of not explaining. Is that an AI artifact? Is that an effect? Or is that it trying to be more human by making intentional mistakes? I'm now starting to question myself. I feel like I need to have a Voight Kampf test from Blade Runner or something, maybe.
Plan.
Okay, I need to hear more about this SMARTY principle. It sounds like a very powerful tool.
It really is. And a written plan built on these principles will really help minimize that wasted effort. And it helps you adapt when those unexpected things happen.
That's a good point. So we've talked about focus and writing down the plan. Where does strategy fit into all this?
A solid strategy takes your focus, then turns it into actual steps to reach your marketing goals. The book uses this great analogy, the counting to 20 game. Have you ever played
Again,
that?
Oh yeah, total chaos. Everyone's trying to count at the same time. Nobody's listening.
Exactly.
okay, that's a game I invented. You all have to count to 20. You can only count one number at a time, and you can't say two numbers in a row. So you get two people, and you have to close your eyes. So you have to you have to kind of anticipate what other people are doing. It's kind of an empathy test. Um, they're explaining it again like everybody knows the count to 20 game, and it's just not true.
Just like those players struggling without communication and a shared plan. Companies can't succeed if their marketing efforts are all over the place. It highlights the need for that unified approach, a roadmap for your marketing journey.
So that roadmap is the strategy, right? Like the analogy in the book. You wouldn't just start walking from Land's End to John O'Groats without a map.
Exactly. But here's the thing. We get so attached to our plans sometimes, even when they're clearly not working. The book calls this the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
You've already invested so much time and money.
Book calls this the sunk cost fallacy. It's taking up. It's interesting that it's taking everything I say in the book as something that I invented, and sometimes it removes the attribution. It removes the fact that everybody knows what the sunk cost fallacy is. I didn't invent this. I don't think anyone invented it. This is kind of something that's been around for a very long time. But because I provided my book and it sees that information in my book, it is turning around and saying, hey, why are you... I invented this because it's the only information it's got. Again, quite interesting.
You're almost afraid to change direction, even when it's clear you need to.
It's a common trap. The book uses the example of BlackBerry. They clung to those physical keyboards and totally missed the smartphone revolution. It's a stark reminder that adaptability is key, especially in the always changing world of marketing.
That's really interesting. I find this a lot with AI. Let's go back just slightly and let's hear that again.
Totally missed the smartphone revolution. It's a stark reminder that adaptability is key, especially in the always changing world of marketing.
The always changing world of marketing, in the ever adapting world, that is something you find a lot in AI. And I've never actually tried to work out why, but that kind of clunky, in the ever changing, but it makes me feel like it's a little bit salesy, a little bit soapy. And you get that a lot with AI writing. It will usually start along the lines of, in the ever changing world of business, there are a few things more important. It's contextualizing, and I get why it's doing it, but it does it so often, ChatGPT specifically, does it so often that it's now a hallmark of AI, and it's been used here. And actually, the first time in a little while that I've noticed genuinely the AI.
I remember when everybody had a BlackBerry. It's crazy how fast things change. So once you have a solid strategy and you're ready to adapt, how do you choose the right tactics?
This is where the book gets super practical. It makes it very clear that not every tactic is right for every business. It's like ordering from a restaurant menu. You don't get everything. You choose what you want and what fits your needs.
I love that analogy. It takes the pressure off feeling like you have to do everything. So what kind of marketing?
Okay, so that's the first kind of 7 minutes. Not going to go through the whole 20 minutes today. I think it's an exercise in understanding what AI is and what AI is not. I think it's incredibly useful. So this is not designed to be a podcast. It's not designed to be, it's designed to mimic a podcast to help and aid learning. That's the way that Google has described NotebookLM. And I think it does that. I think it does that massively. I'm interested in it from a podcast point of view and from an AI point of view. And I think it's phenomenal. And it's exactly what people think AI is all about. And when this is what, 2-3 years in, I think when they get it, it's going to be eerie. It's going to be spooky. And I just think it's going to be amazing. And there are obviously concerns about, transparency and honesty and fake news and misinformation. I get all of that. That's not a reason to not develop the technology. It's a reason to understand the technology and educate on the technology. And I think that's really, really important too. I hope you've enjoyed this. Apologies again if my coughing and use of the cough mic button has not been 100% accurate. I do apologize. I just wanted to kind of give you an insight from my perspective as a business consultant and from someone who's interested in technology, how useful this kind of stuff can be from people who are not particularly reading first. They are audio first. You can throw anything into NotebookLM and it will spit out a deep dive just like this that will talk about whatever subject you want. And I think that's amazing, because what equity is not giving everyone the same thing. It's giving people what they need to learn. And so having this and having someone maybe with more of an audio focused learning method as opposed to a written method or a teaching, a being taught method, this is going to super help them. So on top of all the fun we've been having with the AI side of things, it's worth noting that this is a learning tool and should be really used in that way at the moment. So there you go. Thank you so much for your time. We won't be streaming on Wednesday because I will be in Somerset, but we will be back soon with another live stream on business marketing, running your own business, philosophy, and other business-related things that will help you be